show you around, if that's what you'd like to do, Rod.
Yes, thanks, Richard, and good afternoon, everybody. Right, as you can see, I'm in my shed at the moment. So what I'll do, I'll get up, walk around, oops, and I'll just alter the picture. That's it. So now you can see from the station end long inside. The track goes under a road bridge, out through a hole in the wall of the shed, out to the outside section, which includes the fiddle yard. So what I'll do first, I'll go outside while the weather's still decent, show you the outside bit, and then I'll come back in. So normally when I've got the outside part open, I have both doors up, but today it's rather windy, so I'm just using the one. Anyway, here's the fiddle yard. Now it's quite long, about 12 feet. The double track main line comes in across a double slip, and then we've got 2 points to 4 sidings. We've also got a couple of kickback sidings in front here. And as you can see, at the moment, it's fairly well stocked. Out here in the fiddle yard, I've got a plug-in point for the lens controller. And also, if you can see it, that's a CCTV camera. The screen is in the shed, and that's for use when I've got the covers on and I'm operating inside. The actual covers are down on the floor, and as you can see, the end ones got blown by the wind. The points out in the fiddle yard are operated by pico solenoids. The pico points operated by pico solenoids. The advantage is that when somebody's out here, you can change the points by hand, which, apart from 2, you can't do inside the shed. That's what the fiddle yard looks like. I've not made any attempt to hide the wires, quite deliberately, because it's the fiddle yard. So all the wiring, all the joins across, track joints, all open to view. So we walk, this is what I call the country section. There's the 2 outer home signals, and the double track goes round, and then it goes back through the hole in the shed wall. So with that, I will go back into the shed unless anybody has any questions for me while I'm outside.
I got a question for you.
Yes?
Do you suffer with any damp? It's outside like that with our wonderful weather. And I see you've got the lens plug-in controller there, and you've also got a camera. I mean, does the weather affect it?
So far, no, touch wood.
Oh, good.
For a couple of reasons, I think. One is that the wood I use is fairly thick. It's the walls of the old shed that I had. And if I'll show you the roof, so it's fairly thick. And also I've got thick felt on the top, which is well sealed by this duct tape. I did at one stage have water leaks at the back here, but touch wood, I've managed to cure that. So generally speaking, no, the major problem I have is spiders.
You're right. He's seen him in the clubs right in his back garden.
Quite often, if I'm operating in the shed, a loco or a train will come back with a cobweb on the front of it. Right, so I'll now go back into the shed and describe the layout. Someone's not muted. Right, so in the shed, I think the first question to answer is why West Kirkby? Basically, it's because of childhood memories. We used to live in Liverpool, and we had relatives who lived over the water, as we say in Liverpool. They lived Hoylake. So we used to go over on the train quite often, and often we'd go to West Kirkby. Now, the station appealed to me because it's a small 2-platform terminus with a very intensive service through to Liverpool. And it also had a very, to me, interesting track layout. If you look here, the 2 tracks on the right are the main lines, up and down. The station platform is offset. So we've got a double junction right in front of us. Then we've got a single slip for the approach to platform 1. And then leaving platform 2, we've got the crossover. So that always appealed to me. Now, the disadvantage, of course, is that West Kirkby is on the electrified network, third rail. I didn't use third rail, partly because there aren't any decent models of Class 503s which ran on the ran to West Kirkby on that track. In fact, the whole of Merseyrail's third rail. Also, I used to be a DMU driver at Llangollen, and I wanted models of DMUs. So I decided what I'd do is just run it for DMUs, no third rail. So through services to Liverpool, passengers have to have a cross-platform change at Birkenhead North to the electrified network under the Mersey to Liverpool Central, or to the Loop as it is now. So I stuck with DMUs. I've kept the prototypical track layout apart from the left-hand siding. That is a head shunt to the DMU stabling point, which is there. As you can see, there's a 205, 37 and an 08 in there. I've also built a fueling point and a crew porter cabin. These are not prototypical, but they add extra interest to the operation. The other interest to the operation I've added is that I do have loco haul trains coming in. So I've got a rake of Mark 1s, 4 Mark 1s, and I've got a parcels rake, which are loco hauled. Now, West Kirkby has no run-round facilities, which is why there's a shunter outstationed here. So operation when loco haul comes in is train goes into one of the platforms, the shunter draws the stock out to these ground signals, 44, 36, and the loco then runs out of the platform and stops in the rear of signal 34, and then draws forward into the siding to the right, which is number 2 siding. The shunter then reverses propels the stock into the platform, disappears to wherever, and the train local comes out of the siding and back onto the stock. I've done 3 videos for the show, and the longer one does show a typical day's operation. It's got DMUs coming in and out, but there is also the operation I've just described. That is in there as well. I also run a rake of parcels vehicles. The reason for that is there is a mail order company which has taken over the old Cadbury's site at Morton, but the crossover into Morton is out of use at the moment. So all the traffic has to come into West Kirkby and gets reversed and then goes out again. I've also got some parcels DMUs, but those are in the fiddle yard at the moment. I can show you those if anybody wants to see them. So that's it for the general layout and why West Kirkby. Any questions before I move on?
Yeah, if I may ask the first question. I think that's a great layout, really like it. As a young lad, I lived in Chester, so not a million miles away from you. And of course, we can go straight through to Liverpool now, non-stop. Yes. from Chester. But I like the layout. I'm interested in your lighting. Outside, it looked like LED lighting on the roof. And I was wondering if that's correct and how you run that off the mains. And secondly, what's inside the shed? How do you like that?
Right. Out in the fiddle yard, yes, there is a strip of LED lights, which you can probably just see there. The reason for that is when I have the covers on, I need to be able to see what's happening, and the camera there feeds into this screen. So the lights light up that end of the fiddle yard. So those are operated off 12 volts DC. Inside the shed, I have, what do you call them? Anyway, these diffusers, 3 of them. And just to add a bit more light, I've added another string of LEDs, which aren't quite strong enough. They're only 18 watt, but they do add a bit more. So those are also 12 volt powered, whereas the lights that are in the diffusers are mains powered. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else before I move on?
One of the things I can say, Rod, is that I've just put a new shed up, which is 15 meters by 3.5, 4.
Crikey.
And to light that, I've used strip light LEDs, and they've been very successful. There's 4 sections of the shed, being 50 foot long, to go into old measurements, and it gives sufficient light not to have too much extra lighting. I've also had a new kitchen put into the house, and one of the things we had done was this modern phenomenon of putting LED lights under the edges of the drawers and things, so when you open the drawer up, you can actually see what's inside it. And they run off the mains, but they have a transformer with them. It's only a little transformer. It's about 8 inches long, a little box, and you feed the mains cable into there, and then that transforms down to the voltage for the LEDs. And they work perfectly, and all of it's interchangeable. So if the transformer goes or the LEDs go, you just take another strip and add another strip in. It's seems quite a simple operation.
Yes, yeah. Thinking about it, at the time I was building or starting the layout, which is what, 8.5 years ago, either LEDs were not popular, or I was unaware of it, or unaware of what you could do with them. So I just went for the ordinary tubes. I'm not sure what you call them now.
Strip light.
Fluorescent tube.
Sorry?
Strip light.
Fluorescent, that's it.
Fluorescent strip light.
Yeah, so I just went for those. And on the whole, they're pretty good. but mainly for this session, I put the LEDs at the top. I should have got 36 watt, I think. So yeah, that's how it's lit. It does me okay. I think the picture might be a bit dark, but all in all, it's not too bad.
Very good.
Right, shall I move on?
Yes, please, Rod.
Right, signalling. Again, I've tried to be as close to the prototype as possible. So first of all, I've had a proper signal box diagram drawn for me by a senior signal engineer who worked at Llangollen. Excuse me. And I kept to the signal numbers and locations as close as possible. The major inconsistency is the ground signal number 30, which is at the base of the inner homes. That should be 39. I misread the plan when I was specifying the drawing. Also, on the real thing, there were just two sidings, siding 1 and the down siding. So between point 27 and catch point 29, there was a ground signal there. But when I was putting in what's signed as the private siding, which later became the DMU stabling point, the signalling engineer said, really, we ought to have ground signals on the two sidings. So we put in signals 28 and 25. To control exit from the head shunt to the stabling point, we have this yellow ground signal. When that's cleared, it means the route to the down main is clear all the way to the outer home, down outer home. As it's yellow, shunting movements can carry on in the stabling point, up the head shunt and back again. The signals themselves, again, are models of the actual. So the double bracket, the starters, is quite a feature of West Kirkby, actually. All the signals were built for me by John Fitness, who trades as Bolton's Bits. Oh, and incidentally, if I mention suppliers, builders, and so on, it's only as a satisfied customer. The inner home signal has a theatre indicator just here, which obviously isn't lit at the moment because the signals are at danger. The smaller calling on arm is to give permission to access an occupied siding, platform. If the ground signal at the bottom, number 30, only permits access from the down main to the sidings. It does not permit any access to the platforms at all. Any shunting movements from the sidings to the platforms and vice versa all come to the up main and stop behind signals 44 and 36. Now, track-wise, you could use shunting up behind 30, but when I started this, I wanted to know about the signalling, so I put a thread on RM Web asking about it, and I got very, very good information from a former signalman who worked at West Kirkby, and the amount of information I got about how it was operated, where the signals were, etc., was really, really useful. So I try and operate it as prototypically as I can, without the third rail, obviously, which, having been a driver at Llangollen, I wanted to recreate it as properly as I could. I'm trying to run a railway, basically, as opposed to playing trains. So, before I move on to the buildings, are there any questions so far? No?
No, carry on.
So with the signalling, I've also got a control panel here. If I sound a bit strained, it's because I've got the camera right up against my face. So the switches correspond to the numbers on the signalling diagram. The signals are all interlocked with the points, and that is done through a diode matrix, which is here under the board. I spent a lot of time working out the circuits, and I also spent a lot of time sitting on the floor under the layout doing the wiring. The way it works, the points are, apart from the ones in the fiddle yard, are operated by tortoise motors. And for those of you who know them, tortoise motors have got two switches, I suppose, from them. One I use for the live frogs on the points. So the other one I have used for the interlocking. So power to the signals goes into the center contact of the second switch on the tortoise. And then we have a feed from either the normal setting or the reverse setting of the points. Through the diode matrix, eventually power comes to the solenoid, which operates the appropriate signal, and the signal will then clear. If any point is not set correctly, the signal will not clear. I've got a bit of interlocking with two of the points, which are 22 and 26B here. It is possible, or it was, to have conflicting routes. So the one on the nearest track could be set for the reversed. The one on the far track could be set for normal, which looked pretty awful. It wasn't very prototypical. So those are now interlocked. 22, which is the top one, has to be reversed as it is before 26 can move like that. So now if I try, 22 will not go back. That's the top one until 26 goes back, and then 22 goes to normal. Right, I've just had a note saying we've got 10 minutes left. So before I go any further, are there any questions?
Yeah, me again, if I may.
Yes.
Rod, the points, particularly the Pico ones out in the fiddle yard, do you have any CDU for those, or is just the normal line out, your wiring sufficient to carry the current to make those work efficiently?
No, I have a CDU somewhere. I can't remember where it is now. It's under the board somewhere. But yes, I've found in the past Pico points do need that extra bit of oomph when they're changing. The normal 12 volts doesn't really do it. The advantage of having those out there, of course, is when I'm operating in the shed using this control panel, that's for the fiddle yard, and the CCTV, I can hear the points changing. I don't know if you'll be able to. No, it's not very loud. But I can hear the points actually changing. In the early days, I found that occasionally the tie bar would come unfastened from the point motor. So I'd end up with a short when I sent a train down. But I think I've sorted that now. So yes, the other thing is these 2 points in the stabling point are both hand operated, big hand from the sky. just to explain the private siding bit, that was originally going to be a Preservation Society depot. But as I got going and I realised how many DMUs I'd have, I thought, no, I'll change it to a stabling point for DMUs. So whilst I do run a couple of steam specials, the story is that they are based at New Brighton. So they run from New Brighton to West Kirkby on summer weekends and bank holidays. So, any more questions at all?
No.
Nope.
Rod,
Right, just
thank you very much
yes.
for that. That was most informative. For all those who are online at the moment, there is another session from Rod at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so in half an hour's time. So if you want to come back, if you've got any more questions, he's available from them.
Yes.
From 3 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it, and go and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
I've enjoyed watching this. My railway's outdoors, and I've got all mechanical points connections.
Oh, yes.
Including in my garage, which is the main base, like yours in the shed, all mechanical points.
Oh,
working.
right.
What is it? 16 points on the mainframe.
Yes.
But I haven't got the signals working.
Oh, right.
Well done. Well done for that.
Thank you. Thanks. Right.
Thank you, Rod.
You're still there, Richard?
Yes, I am.
Right. Okay. I'll leave the meeting now. I'll go and have a brew, and I'll be back at 2 to 3.
Okay. Look forward to it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Lovely. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.